Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Secretary for Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, Huey Cadet, and the Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development, Joel Jack, addressed the media.
I wish to share with the people of Tobago and the people of Trinidad as well some of the activities being undertaken by the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development to advance the island's goal. The island's goals as outlined in the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Tobago and my recent budget statement. Building on a tradition of high performance, the units and subsidiaries of the division, we continue to deliver an impressive array of services to the people of Tobago. I must say that we have successfully advanced the island's development agenda, engaged key partners and stakeholders, built and strengthened alliances, and created opportunities for Tobago's advancement. Our strategic undertakings have resulted in the successful financial performance of Tobago thus far, and given our ability to secure a favorable credit rating from international investor service evaluators Moody's, reaffirms this administration's prudent financial management. Moody's interim findings speak to an economy with very low debt levels, high spending flexibility, and solid liquidity position. The impending rating will place the Assembly in a favorable position at the high end of regional and Latin American governments and open many doors for alternative funding for much-needed development projects here on the island. We have represented and continue to represent the people of Tobago at bilateral sessions with partners, donors, and the central government. You may be aware that the Assembly, as part of a trade mission conducted last year, negotiated entry of several Tobago products into Panama. Under a partial scope agreement, which will be proclaimed soon, since the bill entitled Trinidad and Tobago Panama Partial Scope Trade Agreement Bill 2014 was passed in the Senate last Tuesday. With its passage, Tobago's cassava flour, cassava meal, bay leaf powder, essence, pepper sauce, and other condiments will gain entry into the Panamanian market. This will undoubtedly enhance the development and expansion of trade, strengthen cooperation activities, provide fair conditions of competition, and develop mechanisms that will facilitate further investment. Tobago agro-processors stand to benefit from this opportunity, and the division will also work to strengthen the capacity of its local producers to exploit this new market. In the division, we have also developed a policy framework for public-private partnership arrangements, and we are close to finalizing the mechanism for its implementation with the establishment of a PPP unit in the division. Recently, just 2 weeks ago, we conducted training for staff across the Assembly, focusing on the Assembly's legal and procurement requirements to support PPP project implementation in partnership with the Government of Canada. And I take this opportunity to publicly thank His Excellency Mr. Latulip, High Commissioner of Canada, for their assistance in advancing the Assembly's plans and for improving the skills of the Assembly's personnel to deliver to the people of Tobago in this area. Our P3 unit will be fully constituted soon, and following which we will be poised to commence identification and implementation of several projects here in Tobago. We continue to liaise with international agencies towards its fulfillment. In keeping with our commitment to expand the business sector, the Executive Council recently approved $2 million in funding to support 2 local enterprises via the Tobago Venture Capital Equity Fund Limited. The Tobago Venture Capital Equity Fund is one of the division's enterprises established to assist with investments that support the Assembly's eco-diversification mandate. The fund aims to strengthen qualified, new and early-stage enterprises in public and private sector arrangements. As we may be aware, the Tobago House of Assembly has set aside 25 million TT dollars via this fund to assist businesses and to achieve economic development and diversification. The funds committee is currently reviewing a total of 7 applications in a variety of areas, and we hope that in the near future we'll be announcing further disbursements coming from the Venture Capital Equity Fund. Having also identified gaps in funding for enterprise development, the Executive Council will also be asked to consider a new model for financing these businesses. This will also be supported by the Venture Capital Equity Fund, and this will target those businesses who find themselves overqualified for programs administered by the Business Development Unit and unable to access venture capital funding because of the limitation of the Venture Capital Act. Additionally, the Business Development Unit will in the upcoming months begin considering applications for specialized funding in the agriculture sector and the agro-processing sector. In April, in the next month, a proposal for this approach will be submitted to the Executive Council for their consideration. This should provide further incentives for farmers and agro-processors to stimulate their businesses in this cluster. In April, I also propose to take to the Executive Council a note to increase the limit of the Enterprise Assistance Fund from $250,000 to $500,000. The Assembly's prioritization of the agro-processing sector will also manifest itself later this week as the Caribbean Local Economic Development Project, or CARILED, in collaboration with the Tobago House of Assembly and the Tobago Agro-Processors Association, will be launching a project where the Tobago Agro-Processors Association's members will be provided with infrastructural and technical support to increase agro-processing production, market penetration, sales, and by extension, income for Tobago's farmers. With respect to the planning for the upcoming budget, I'm pleased to announce today that we have commenced our planning and consultations for the upcoming fiscal year. This year, we hope to have closer engagement with not only our high priority interest groups, but all stakeholders and all divisions in the Assembly as we seek to streamline budgetary allocations and to rationalize spending for both recurrent and development programs. This is becoming even more critical in light of the existing international economic and political climate. Oil prices continue to flounder, and there is no indication of any policy stance by the central government as how to treat with the various scenarios. The divisions have revised their budgets in October last year, and we followed up with another exercise in January of this year, and we have been able to minimize the potential impact of these conditions on Tobago, but we will continue to further entrench the practice of sound financial management as we prepare ourselves for any eventuality. Apart from the respective divisions, the private sector will also assist in informing the 2016 budget. Meetings are being scheduled to allow our major interest groups to share their thoughts and recommendations on priorities and strategies for fiscal 2016 in keeping with this administration's commitment to participatory democracy, and to deepen the democratic approach to governance. In furtherance of the Assembly's collaborative spirit, the division has also engaged the Tobago chapter of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Indigenous Credit Union movement through the Tobago chapter of the Cooperative Credit Union League. Both groups have identified some priority areas for action, and I am committed to working with these respective entities to alleviate some of the challenges identified. The Chamber expressed its concerns with access to foreign exchange on the island, labor, and general workforce productivity. The division has mobilized resources and will be undertaking a study to inform how we can approach labor and productivity issues here on the island. We have also assured the business sector that we will continue to engage interest groups with the intent of increasing performance in both areas. Our credit unions have shared their anxieties about the negative impact of the impending legislative arrangements, and those arrangements, I am informed, should be taken to Parliament soon. The division has agreed to further consultation with the movement through an established working group to develop strategies for addressing the movement's concerns in relation to the proposed credit union bill and the overall regulations of the credit union. There will also be an examination of opportunities for creating more intimate and structured interactions with the sector by the Tobago House of Assembly. We will all agree that Tobago's credit unions are unique and require the formulation of novel and innovative strategies to stimulate their expansion, strengthen their infrastructure, and deepen their relationship with the Tobago House of Assembly. Within a month or so, we should have a clearly carved out position and approach to treat with the sector, which holds over $347 million in assets and which, by conservative estimates, contributes over 6% of the island's GDP. The financial, insurance, and business services sector was the second highest contributor to the Tobago's GDP in 2012 and 2013, and this underscores the importance of strengthening these two segments of the economy. In closing, despite external constraints, development of the island continues apace. We have record low unemployment, a slowly diversifying economy, and in my recent motion, we have clearly demonstrated the work undertaken by this administration, and we identify that this work is bearing fruit in many areas. But there is more to be done. I encourage citizens to continue to work with the Tobago House of Assembly and to access many of the opportunities that are available for the development of the people and the island of Tobago. I wish to restate some thoughts shared in the recent chamber during the presentation of the last motion. Our development thrust is people-centered. Tobago's development requires the empowerment of its people such that they perceive themselves and are indeed capable of engaging in a high level of economic and social activities and in creating new ones based on current opportunities and future resources, end of quote. And I'm proud to say that we have provided the framework for this outcome. It is now up to the people to utilize that which we have provided.
The Scarborough Library facility would have officially opened its doors for business on Monday, 23rd February 2015, of course, after the commissioning ceremony, which was held the evening before, which was Sunday, the 22nd February, at the facility. Therefore, I just want to provide an update, of course, on some of the things that has happened at the library, just to remind members of the public. Of course, the library is open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 6 p.m., on Saturdays, 8:30 to 12 noon. Just to give an insight into some of the services that we have at the library, which are relatively to library services in Trinidad and Tobago. So essentially, some services that we have at Scarborough that NALIS does not have at in Trinidad include, of course, our laptop loan kiosk, our senior citizens lounge, a designated Tiny Tots room, or a specialized area for children 4 and under. Of course, the Tobago archives with materials dating back as early as the 1700s, automated book return, and of course the tin client computers, which are the computers that have no individual hard drives. Right, so those, of course, as I said, are some of the services that exist at the New Scarborough Library that does not currently exist anywhere else in the country. Of course, the laptop kiosk allows for the stores 6 computers. It securely stores 6 computers. It recharges them, it wipes them clean, and then it dispenses for the individual user, which the person can then use within the premises of the library up until the time that the battery wears out or the library closes. All right. We, of course, similar to international libraries, and in conjunction with NALIS, we are providing patrons access to several online databases and e-books. And of course, so once you register and with your individual registration and PIN number, you can go online and access NALIS website. Of course, if you are in Trinidad, you can also visit any of the libraries while you're in Trinidad. We, of course, have the latest visually impaired software and hardware in the Caribbean at the visually impaired room. Of course, especially established for our visually impaired persons here in Tobago. Some of the programs and activities that we have held thus far at the library include literary readings with the Tobago Writers Guild. We have held a story hour with story hour sessions on a Wednesday with Ms. Lauren Boris Phillips and Dr. Eastlyn McKenzie. We have had a civil rights talk with the United States Information Service through the United States Embassy. We have had spoken word sessions with mood writers and inclusive Mr. Cleon McPherson and Dr. Crystal Skeet. We have had a training workshop for National Young Voices. We have had Children Fun Time, which happens on a Saturday between 10 and 12. And I can tell you I've been there on one of the Saturdays, and it is indeed a fun time for the kids in terms of doing art and craft. We have also held a session in conjunction with the Pink Diamond Society for Ladies. Why can't I make it happen? A hashtag make it happen for young women. Some of the activities that we have scheduled for the rest of March include the Tobago Chess Society National Chess Tournament, the Jenga Institute in collaboration with the Friends of Tobago Society, My Purpose is for Real, and of course we have a training session being undertaken by the REACH unit, the Division of Health and Social Services. I will of course provide copies of the schedule for the month of March for you afterwards so that you can use that in sending out the information. I also want to indicate on Sunday the 22nd, the Tobago House of Assembly and through the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, our Chief Administrator and our Administrator, Mr. Raphael Mitchell, would have signed an MOU with NALIS. And this MOU essentially outlines several guidelines for our ongoing relationship between NALIS and the THA with the operations of library services in Tobago. Some of those guidelines include a coordination and the collaboration for the recruitment of library personnel for the Tobago Library Services, facilitate the training of library personnel assigned to Tobago Library Services, provide support for the institutional strengthening of the libraries under the THA, including those in the schools, our community libraries, and of course libraries at other agencies, including the library at the Chamber. Of course, provide guidelines and set standards for the efficient operation of Tobago Library Services, arrange for the provision of educational, advisory, and informational services for the libraries of the THA, and of course, manage in collaboration with the THA the human resource of the libraries in Tobago. They, of course, will assist us in providing consultative services to the THA for the development of the curricula in information skills for primary and secondary schools. I also want to share some information on early childhood care and education. The Tobago House of Assembly, of course, has as a responsibility for education in Tobago, has been in discussions within recent times with the Ministry of Education for the complete transfer of early childhood education and the responsibility of the management of early childhood in Tobago completely under the THA. Over the years, there has been a dual management with the Tobago House of Assembly being responsible for some aspects of that management, including repairs, providing support, some level of supervision. But the ministry also retained the responsibility for the payment of salaries. Therefore, as a division and as part of addressing this transfer of all of early childhood, one of the first things that we have done would have been to draft an MOU for submission to the ministry. That document is now being reviewed by the ministry's legal team, and that MOU will guide the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly and the ministry as it relates to early childhood. We also, of course, have begun a process of a rationalization of all the early childhood centers in terms of their staff, because it is our intention for the salaries at the end of April that the new terms and conditions that are similar to those that have been paid at the national level, that the staff at the early childhood centers, the government and government assisted, will begin to receive those salaries at the end of April. And we know this is a long anticipated exercise, but we are indeed committed that at the end of April we will begin to pay those new salaries. Some of the other things that the division has undertaken in terms of the review of the early childhood, we have begun a registration process. We have begun the identification of standards and ensuring that the operations of the early childhood centers in Tobago are in keeping with those standards. We have begun a review of the national curriculum with regards to early childhood education to determine the relevance and how the Tobago House of Assembly can ensure that it is relevant to the Tobago child. We have also begun physical upgrade of all centers in Tobago, and we have also been reviewing the teacher-student ratio to ensure that there's a balance across all these schools, because we have recognized there are some childhood centers where the numbers of students, the teacher-student ratio, may be outside of the norm. We, of course, have undertaken 2 teacher professional development workshops, one entitled Towards Improved Internal Relations, Administration and Good Ethics, which was held in January, and we held a second workshop in early March, both geared to improving and building the capacity of our early childhood staff here in Tobago. Let me, of course, I know that as members of the media would have been aware of the meeting of the Tobago House of Assembly and the Ministry of Sport that took place last week, Friday. One of the immediate commitments coming out of that meeting was an attempt to identify what areas of the Dwight York Stadium that might have been immediately be able to be accessed by the sporting fraternity. So coming out of a site visit, we received a correspondence from the ministry that has met the satisfaction of OSHA, and therefore I'd want to indicate that arrangements have been put in place that effective immediately that the proposed areas at the Dwight York Stadium that members of the sporting fraternity will have access to includes the external football field or the training ground, the east car park, the training, the warm-up track, and we are waiting some finalization on the timelines for access for training on the internal track and the football field itself. So that let me repeat that. Effective immediately, members of the sporting fraternity will have access to the training ground or the external football field, the east car park, the external or the external track or the warm-up track, and we are waiting the timelines for access that will allow access for training on the 400 meters of the internal track and the football field. In order to facilitate, of course, and restrict access and ensure a degree of comfort for the persons who will be accessing the external facilities, portable toilets and tents will have been placed on the outside to allow those athletes who will be training in preparation for CRIFTA and any other meet to therefore utilize these facilities without having to access the building, because again the stands remain off limits, and so that washroom facilities and tents have been put in place to ensure that of the comfort of the athletes who will be utilizing the external facilities. I just also want to announce of a month-long collaboration between the Assembly and the Trinidad and Tobago Volleyball Federation, which saw the arrival and the hosting of two volleyball coaches here in Tobago for 1 month, in the persons of Mr. Augusto Sabatini from Brazil and Mr. Sean Morris from Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Sabatini is an international volleyball coach and instructor from Brazil. His experience is very vast. He has coached in, of course, in his own country of Brazil. He has coached in Qatar, Pakistan, India, Nigeria, Vietnam, Kuwait, to name a few. In terms of, he has served previously as the head coach of our senior volleyball team here in Trinidad and Tobago, and led them to the 3rd place in the Caribbean Volleyball Championship and 6th place at the Pan American Volleyball Cup in Canada. He also would have led us to 7th place in the Continental Olympic qualification in Puerto Rico. So that Mr. Sabatini and Mr. Morris will be hosting a series of clinics right across the island for the 1 month. Copies of the schedule will be shared with you after. But these clinics will range from Charleville Methodist, Speyside High School, Mason Hall Primary School, right down to Bonaccord Government Pentecostal Lighthouse. It's right across the island, Mondays to Fridays, throughout the day, different sessions. So that information will be shared with you afterwards so that you can utilize that in sharing. So we are hoping that coming out of this month-long visit, that one, of course, increase in the level of participation and interest in volleyball, coaching for training of our coaches here, and certification of our coaches here in Tobago, and of course the opportunity to have maybe a mini volleyball league at the end among our schools at the end of the month. Mr. Sabatini is to return in November for a follow-up visit, at which time more training and certification will take place. I also want to extend congratulations to our young Tobago athletes who qualified for the Carifta Games, which will be held in St. Kitts and Nevis from the 4th to the 6th of April 2015. A total of 17 athletes from Tobago qualified for the national team this year, which is up from 14 last year. Of course, as indicated before, 14 last year's numbers was as a record high, and the fact that we have gone to 17 suggests that we continue to see the improvement in our performances, that we have an additional 3 persons making the team this year, and that is of course as a result of not only the investment of the Tobago House Assembly, but our partnership with the coaches in the clubs, of course parents and the games teachers within our schools, who all work in tandem to ensure we can produce these young athletes. Some of the athletes who have made the team include Aaron Lewis, Omari Benoit, Andwele Wright, Kinesia Williams, all of whom have made the team before. Kimani Roberts, Chelsea James, and Anya Akili, again, persons who have made the team before. Akani Hislop is also a repeater. In terms of first time, we have Akko Hislop, who's Akani's brother, Franklin Stanislaus, Nikosi James. Other repeaters include Vandal Joseph and Tyreek Horsford. We also have, in terms of first time continuing girls under 18, Sophia John, Chevelle McPherson, Peaches Stott, and Asha James as a repeater. The coaches accompanying our athletes will be Mr. Gerard Franklin, Mr. Aaron Lund Morrison, Mr. Wade Franklin, and Mr. Durley Lucas as official at the games.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending March 21st, 2015.